we shouldn't think of meditation as trying to attain or reach some sort of special state, some sort of exotic mind state. It's really the opposite. Development of meditation brings the mind closer to its natural state, the natural, you might say, primordial state of mind, the mind in its own essence. In Tibetan Buddhism, they often use the simile of the blue sky obscured by the clouds. The blue sky is always present, even on the stormiest, cloudiest day, but it's obscured by the clouds. So that the natural state of the mind is obscured by the various defilements of the mind. When we're developing samadhi meditation leading into stillness, we try and access that sublime peacefulness of the blue sky by keeping the mind still on a single object, such as the sensation of breathing. And this is essentially a more natural resting place of mind, to be still, when the mind is just being, it's not doing. We go out with the mind through the sense gates and through the thoughts and get lost in the busyness of things, the 10,000 things. And we lose the essence of our own nature. In the Thai forest tradition, sometimes you'll see the phrase used, our true home, coming home, the idea of that this natural state of being is our true home. And we've gone wandering, we've lost our way. We can't find our way home because we're wandering in all the thicket of sense impressions and thoughts and desires and fears and so on. Again, in terms of samadhi meditation, the main set of obstacles to developing that stillness are the 5 nivarana, the 5 hindrances. And the word nivarana means like wandering, going down the wrong path. Instead of going home, you wander off down some byway and get lost. The 5 nivarana are things that cause the mind to spin out, to proliferate, to wander, and to lose that stillness. The first nivarana is kamachanda, sense desire. And we seek pleasant sense experiences, and we seek to avoid unpleasant sense experiences. And this is a very predominant defilement at our level of being. The human form is a sense desire realm form, and we're dominated, our psyche is dominated in this embodied existence by our relationship to the things through the senses. Wandering out through the senses prevents the mind from experiencing that stability, that stillness, that spaciousness and peacefulness of samadhi. So this is the reason why sense restraint is such an important part of the practice when you're developing meditation. To restrain, to close the sense gates, to stay quiet within and not go wandering out looking for diversion, distraction, and so on. in terms of developing meditation, when we talk about sense restraint, we're not just talking about obvious extreme sensuality, but any sort of wandering out through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body distracts you from the meditation. Recall the story of the Visuddhimagga of the smell thief, bhikkhu who was meditating in a forest glade, and part of his daily routine was he would go to the pond and have a bath. And one time he went to the pond and the lotuses were in bloom, and he stopped, leaned over, and smelled one of the lotuses, and he heard a little voice from the shore, "Thief, you're a thief." And he says, "Who's that? Who's speaking to me?" It was a little Dewa, forest Dewa. And she said, "You're a thief." He says, "I'm not a thief. I've never stolen anything in my life." And she says, "Yes, you're a smell thief. You're a thief of odors." She was rebuking him for his lack of attention to his meditation. He was seeking distraction, diversion out through the sense gates. The Buddha in his teachings was fond of using similes, and his similes for these 5 nivarana. One of them for the nivarana, the hindrance of sense desire, is being in debt. Having sense desire is like being in debt, because you endlessly have to keep paying it off, because the interest is always due. There's no respite from desire. It's never satisfied. And another set of analogies, he compares the natural mind to a bowl of crystal clear water. In a bowl of water, you can see through the water to the bottom of the water. If there's pebbles at the bottom, you can see them. But if the mind is clouded with sense desire, it's like throwing colored dye into the water. It looks pretty, but you can't see through it. It's obscured. The next hindrance in nivarana is ill will, vyapada. And this covers the whole range of negative states, from irritation to anger to dislike, and all the way up to full-blown hatred is all encompassed under vyapada. Any sort of negative reaction to stimulus. It's the opposite of sense desire. Sense desire, you're moving towards an object. In ill will, you're moving away, you're pushing it away, or seeking to eliminate it or escape from it. And this too obscures the mind and keeps the mind from being at peace. When the mind arises to negativity in any form, then it's disturbed. And the object should be to seek, the ideal should be to seek an equipoise, neither attracted nor repulsed, neither desiring or fearing, but to just be present with what is. Ill will is compared to a sickness, like having a fever, because it's inherently unpleasant and it consumes and burns the body. There's one passage that's speaking about ill will, or particularly anger, speaking about anger, and saying that if you're angry at somebody, what do you wish? You wish may they be ill. And anger makes you ill. It burns you up. You might wish may they be ugly. And anger makes everybody ugly when your face is all contorted with rage. And so on. May they be poor. If you're consumed with anger, you'll neglect your business and things will fall apart and you'll become poor. In Buddhist thinking there's absolutely no case where anger is useful or justified. Years ago, I heard on the radio a program they had. I only caught the one episode. It was a series on the 7 deadly sins from Christianity. And the one I heard happened to be on anger. And they had a number of different speakers. Mostly they were different Christian priests and pastors and so on, but they had the Dalai Lama, a statement by the Dalai Lama on anger. And all these other ones before him, they were finding some thing. They all agreed anger was generally bad, but there's some cases where anger against unrighteousness or injustice or wrongdoing, then you could feel a righteous anger. And they were all making some exceptions or excuses. So the Dalai Lama starts out right away, says, anger is always bad, no exceptions. Yeah? And this always been the Buddhist view, that it's an unskillful mind state. It's not helpful. If other people are acting in a unskillful way or hurtful way, then your reaction to them is still your responsibility, and you can deal with the situation more skillfully without anger. The other story I like to tell about anger is a conversation I had once with a woman who had advanced martial arts training. She had a black belt in karate. And she was telling me about how it works, how they have their competitions, when they have bouts, and prize fights. And she said that sometimes the opponents will use dirty tricks. And I said, like what? She said, well, they'll do things to make you angry. They'll call you names or make faces or something to try and make you angry. Then you'll make a mistake. And I thought this is very interesting, that even in a situation of warrior skill, that anger makes you a less efficient warrior. So there's no possible use of anger. All it does is disturb the mind. And it's obviously the mind is not at peace. So it's another thing that pulls us away. And anger is compared to, with a pot of water, it's compared to the water's boiling. You've got it on the stove and it's boiling, then you can't see to the bottom. It's not clear. It's all churned up. The third niwarna of hindrance is tinna midda, which is translated sloth and torpor. That's the dullness, heaviness, laziness of mind. This is something all meditators experience from time to time. You get dull or sleepy or heavy in your meditation practice, and not bright, clear, and awake. And this is another way that the mind is moved from its still point. It's lost in a dull, dreamy morass. This is compared to a bowl of water with pond scum growing on it. And then the other set of analogies is compared to being in a prison. You're in a dark, gloomy dungeon underground, chained up. This is like having sloth and torpor. The limbs feel heavy, the mind feels heavy. You need to brighten, awaken, clear the mind. The first thing to pay attention to if you're struggling with dullness is posture, to be sitting straight, not allowing yourself to bend and slump, and this will lead to sleepiness. Light is useful to be in a well-lit place if you're struggling with sleepiness. If you can't get enough natural light, then you can try and meditate on the idea of light. Try and mentally brighten the mind. Then there's the hindrance of anxiety or worry. This is a mind that is caught in thought formations. There's some reference in the mind to events or memories or future speculations, and the mind is caught in a loop. It's really a cognitive kind of defilement. And the first thing to recognize is that there is no possible way of thinking your way out of worry. Some people who are prone to this defilement, they can't let it go because they sort of think they've got to solve it in their mind somehow. They've got to keep running it through till they can resolve it. And that never works. You're just going to spin out more scenarios and it's endlessly caught in it. You just have to cut through it, drop it all, let it all go, and just be present. And just be in the present moment to stay with the object of meditation. Being caught by anxiety is compared to being enslaved. Just as a slave cannot go where they want and do what they want, so the mind that's caught in worry has to follow this loop of worried thoughts. It's not free. As compared to a bowl of water that's stirred up and whipped up by the wind. The last one is translated usually as skeptical doubt, or sometimes as uncertainty, as witchikitcha. Skeptical doubt, uncertainty, is the inability of the mind to just rest with the practice. This is compared to being lost in the desert without a map. If you're caught in this defilement, then there's the uncertainty in the practice. There's a desire in the mind. This is sort of the way, the dynamic of the way this works. There's a desire in the mind for certainty. You want things to be fixed or certain, but you're unable to resolve it. You're uncertain. Am I doing this the right way? Or what's the point of this anyway? Uncertainty obstructs the easy, clear passage of the meditation. You keep endlessly going back, starting over in a sense. It's like climbing a hill and you get part way up and you say, well, that other side of the hill is probably an easier climb, and you go back down and try that, and oh no, this is no good. I'll go around the other way. The opposite of uncertainty is saddha, faith or confidence. It's an extremely important quality for developing meditation, is to have confidence in what you're doing. And it's often the case that someone who just has a simple, clear faith in the practice and just does it, makes greater headway, makes quicker progress than somebody who is endlessly debating with themselves and others about the minutiae of it and not certain. And that's kind of a trap, something to watch out for if you're prone to study a lot, to read or listen to different Dhamma teachers and talks, which is a good thing. It can be very helpful, but something to watch for in the mind is getting caught in uncertainty. You'll find if you read and listen enough, you'll find that all the many teachers have slightly different approaches and views and takes on the way to do it. Because mostly they're coming from what worked for them and what they learned from their teachers. And if you find discrepancies between one and the other, it's really not a problem unless you make it a problem. You don't need to be certain. all the time. You don't need to have a fixed to know which is right and which is wrong. Just have confidence in the practice. And the practice corrects itself with time. If you just do it. Even don't be concerned if you're doing it a little bit wrong. Just keep going and it'll sort itself out. Sometimes it's useful to have a don't know mind. Just to have a complete open question mark in the mind. You don't know. I don't know. It's just, in a sense, it's beyond us. The ultimate realities are, our mind can touch them, but it's not really possible to express them. And we can't bring them down to the level of thought or verbalization. So there's always going to be a question mark mind. There's always going to be an opening. And that's good. That's what allows you to grow. It gives you an opening to explore and to break new ground. This compared to a bowl of water that's muddy or dirty. So these 5 nivaranas are the particular defilements that relate to meditation, particularly prevent the mind from going into deep samadhi. And in fact, you can define the state of jhana, which is when the mind has reached the unity, the state of unity, absorption in the object. You can define that as lack of the hindrances. That the mind naturally settles into jhana when the hindrances are not present. Because it's the natural primordial state of the mind at rest. The natural state of mind is equivalent to jhana. And it's unnatural to be wandering off in sense desire and ill will and anxiety and the rest. It's the mind getting busy doing something rather than being at rest. And the progression through the jhanas, the 4 jhanas, is always a movement towards purification and simplification. This is very critical to understand that we're not gaining anything, we're not attaining anything special, we're actually simplifying. Things are being shed, being lost, abandoned at each stage. In first jhana, we abandon the fascination with the senses. We remove ourselves from the senses. And this is a quantum shift in the mind from sense desire level to the level of form. It's another level of consciousness defined in the Abhidhamma. It's like a different state of consciousness because it's not confused by the senses. It's in a more natural state, a more natural abiding. And then that continues to refine. With second jhana, we absent ourselves from thought process. The mind becomes so quiescent, the thought process peters out. And this leaves the mind in a very rapturous and blissful state. But then the rapturous aspect, the energetic aspect, is transcended as well. The mind settles into an even more natural, blissful state. This is third jhana. And then even bliss starts to seem too busy. And the mind rests in fourth jhana in equanimity, this profound peacefulness. And this is a natural abiding of mind. Now, sometimes we use the word primordial to describe this state of mind. And it's mostly meant in a non-chronological sense. We're talking basic, the natural state of mind. But there is a sense in the mythology that primordial mind makes sense chronologically as well. The mythology is that in the long age between world systems. After a world system is destroyed, then there's a long hiatus when there's no sense desire world anymore, and all the beings are removed and they're reborn into the higher realms of form, where they abide in states of perpetual jhana. In this mythological structure, there has been in your past a long, many billion year long period when you were abiding in a natural state of jhana in the Abhisara realm or higher. And then at some point you decided to get curious and busy and play around with sense desires again when the world started to reform. Oh, what's this stuff over here? Oh, caught. Here we are again. You're stuck in there for a few more billion years. So what we're doing with the meditation is moving the mind back to a more natural center. This is another kind of a spatial analogy that's useful to think of the center and the periphery. Think of the center as like the eye of the storm, still, it's quiet, peaceful, it's at rest, it's at equipoise, everything's balanced. And this is the mind with samadhi, stability, stillness. The mind is balanced and it's equipoise. But if you go out into the defilements, out through the hindrances in the senses and in thought, and you're caught, you're identified, you're caught with the twin forces of fear and fascination. You're spinning around the outer ring, you're far away from the center. And it's confusing and it's suffering, it's difficult, and it's ensnaring. It's difficult to get back to the center. You've got to find your way back. So in a practical sense, what we do with the meditation is we try and simplify. We try and simplify the mind. We try and remove the complications and allow the mind to center again and to experience a natural abiding, natural, clear, peaceful, stable, unified state of samadhi. The mind wide awake but at rest, clear and bright and peaceful. And it's not something that we add to the mind. It's already there. It's there all the time, but it's obscured. It's hidden because we're caught in these various defilements. We're chasing around the sense impressions and the thoughts, and we're caught in desire and anger and fear and anxiety, and we've lost the center. So you should think of meditation as an attempt to simplify and purify. Don't think of it as an activity. Think of it just as a state of being, of non-activity. The ultimate meditation is doing nothing at all, just being present. Doing nothing is so extremely difficult that we give you minimalist exercises like watch the breath. You're going to be breathing anyway, just pay attention to it. It's like doing next to nothing. Some of you will have heard me tell this story before about Milarepa. There's a Tibetan yogi who was wandering around, and he come across some people working. They were building a house. And he sat for a while on a little rise of ground watching them work, and then he thought to himself, this is a good place to do some lying down meditation. And he lied down and meditated lying down, and then one of the guys working said, look at that lazy yogi beggar up there, sleeping in the middle of the daytime. In an hour or so, he'll be coming down here trying to beg from us food for his lunch. says, why don't you come down here and help us build? And he says, oh, I'd love to do that, but it's not possible. I'm trying very hard to do nothing, and doing something would be far. That's difficult enough. Just lying still would be quite impossible in activity. It's doing something much harder. I'm doing nothing. That story reminds me also of a personal anecdote that years ago, decades ago now, I guess, when I was still a layman and I was meditating in a cabin. This is when Kema was teaching here, and I was doing a meditation retreat here in a cabin down the road, and it was in the winter, and some people that we knew went, family, they went cross-country skiing down the river. And they went past my cabin, and I could hear them talking. And someone says, oh, well, who's in there? Oh, it looks like that Mike guy. What's he doing? Oh, I think he's meditating. And then the old man says, well, I guess he's working for a living. and my first reaction was to get a little, snitty about it. And then I thought, nah, you know what? He's right. On this same principle of simplifying and purifying, it also applies to the Vipassana meditation in a little bit different way. In a sense, with Vipassana, we're doing even less than Samadhi. When you're doing a Samatha meditation, developing Samadhi, you have an arbitrarily chosen object, like the breath or a kasina or a mantra, that you're focusing the mind on. So you have this minimal activity, but with Vipassana, you're just being present with whatever is presented to consciousness, with the stream of consciousness. So the mind is really doing nothing but registering what's present. And it's extremely difficult when you first begin that practice. It's very tricky because the mind habitually wants to get caught in the stream of things that pass through. And the effort needs to be to maintain that clear, still, centered position where you're just letting things pass through. You're not identifying with, you're not grasping, you're not manipulating or playing or examining or discriminating or comparing. You're just letting things pass through and being aware of them. And that practice allows you to see the fundamental nature of things, of the objects that arise. You become aware of their impermanence, that nothing persists. There's a constant stream of changing objects. And you're aware of the unsatisfying nature of them, because nothing, if the mind gets interested in something, it's caught momentarily and it loses interest, because nothing can satisfy the mind endlessly. It's all just more stuff. Eventually you see them all as empty. It's empty both ways. The knowing mind is empty and the object is empty. And then this allows the mind to release from the process. When you see things clearly in these ways, the mind can release from the process. When you don't see them that way, an ordinary confused mind is caught in what are called the vipalasas, the inverted. Bhikkhu Bodhi, I've seen him translated as inverted seeing, or inversions. The inversions. Other people translate it as the hallucinations. It's the mind that sees the impermanent as permanent, the unlovely as lovely. There's four of them. The the painful as pleasurable, and the insubstantial as substantial. So it's basically the three characteristics plus the added asubha quality of asubha, or unloveliness, or asubha is like the sensually attractive, a lovely, desirable form, and asubha is the opposite. If you're seeing the objects that arise to the mind as desirable, or you see them as fixed, or you see them as real and substantial, then you're basically hallucinating. You're seeing them wrongly. You're not penetrating their clear nature. And then you can be caught in them. And you're caught in that stream of phenomena. And this is how we manufacture a self. The self entity comes from being caught in this process. So when there's a desirable object, there's a desirer. If there's a possession, there's a possessor. So there's a self-other relationship set up. It comes out of craving. This is craving, clinging, part of the dependent origination. There's a desirable object, and then the mind goes into, from just desiring, it goes into possessing or trying to possess, grasping. And that sets up a relationship. There's now the self and other. There has to be a container for that grasping. And this is how we get caught. This is samsaric becoming. And releasing from that means first seeing clearly, seeing through it. This is yata bhutananadasana, seeing things as they actually are, and not as we would wish them to be, or not as we see them through pink-colored glasses, but see them in their real nature. This leads to nirodha, which is the disenchantment. We're no longer caught in a fascination, or the opposite, fear. We're no longer caught in that, in investing in that form. It's just an object. We've seen it clearly now. We're not enchanted. We're not bewitched by it anymore. We're free in that sense. And that leads to viraga, which is dispassion. The energy has gone out of samsara. The craving is the motive, the energy, the electrical current that drives the motor is craving. And when that's cut off, then the motor winds down. And the last is then vimutti, liberation. This is a set, nirodha, viraga, vimutti, that we often see talking about the mind emerging from samsara, realizing nibbana. In another sense, we can say that nibbana is really the ultimate of primordial state. That it's beyond existence and non-existence. It's all even the most subtle forms of existence, of coming into being, are conditioned, are caught in some sense in the samsaric process. And nibbana is the quiescence, the stilling. The word nibbana means blown out. It's a participle, a verbal participle from, which is often abstract nouns in Pali are in that form, from the verb nibbeti, which means to blow out. So mundane use of the word would be like with the candle. If you want to make sure the candles are blown out in the shrine room, after you ask somebody, wait, you were the last one in there, did you blow out the candles? And if he's answering in Pali, he would say, yes, they are nibbana. That's a mundane use of the word, but it has this technical transcendental meaning in the Buddha's teachings as the ultimate quiescence, the blowing out, the stilling of all formations.